You think you can take on the Wolverine? Oh, damn it! Just cut the fucking tape. I'll try again.
Sorry, Hugh, what was that?
Just cut it.
Yeah, can you just very quickly say, the Wolverine?
The Wolverine.
A lot of people have tried to kill me, but I'm still here.
Eternity is a curse. I can make you mortal.
You offering to kill me? Eternity? You don't know the meaning of the word. What kind of monster are you? The Wolverine. You have 10 words. You don't have the faintest idea what's going on. How many words was that?
9.
In early 3D and large format theaters.
Yes, the Wolverine. Yes. Now this is one of the movies that I've actually been highly anticipating. Probably my third, and this is due to me actually going back and watching a lot of the movies, the previous X-Men films. Before watching them, I'll be honest, I was a huge DC fan. I still am, but there's a game that I've been playing in particular, Marvel Heroes, that I've been sort of stretching my boundaries and sort of bringing in Marvel. I'll be honest, at that time I was thinking, oh, DC is for the teenagers, Marvel is for little kids. If you like Marvel, then you're a fucking pussy, fuck off. But that's not the case. That's really not the case. And I can understand why people like Marvel now. And I've been going back and sort of watching a lot of the Marvel movies. I'm actually a huge fan of Hulk. The character of Hulk is probably my favorite, but Batman movies and games I think are far superior. But the thing I really liked about what they did here was, from me going back and watching these movies, is the fact that I got some backstory to it. And I knew what I was going into, what my expectations were. After watching them all about once or twice, I saw First Class once and the rest of them twice. I think my favorites were X-Men First Class and X-Men 2 or X2. And I think this movie ranks up there with them. It probably goes, X-Men Origins Wolverine, probably the first X-Men Origins Wolverine, the third one, and then the second First Class and Wolverine. Not Wolverine at the top. Those three I'm a little bit skeptical on which one I think is the best. But they were great movies. So let's start it off with how the actual movie starts off. It starts off with Wolverine, who has sort of been kept back and he's in a cave, so to speak. He's sort of retracted from the world and he's gone into a glimmer of hiding. He's actually made friends with a bear. What the fuck? He's made friends with a bear. That's actually that's how he sort of opens up and he meets this redhead girl, which is a major part of the film, and that's how the movie really progresses and starts off. Now, I'm not going to go anymore. I'm not. So let's talk about what this movie does right and why I think it's one of the better movies this year and one of the best superhero movies this year. Now, first of all, I just want to say, I've seen a shit ton of advertisements for this movie. I've seen heaps on TV, on fucking internet, on YouTube, and even on the radio. And I think that has something to do with this movie apparently being shot like 65% in Australia. But if you watch the movie, it looks almost entirely shot in Japan, and even a couple scenes from like mountainy scenes or snowy scenes in New Zealand, which I know there were also 2 other places that they shot. But apparently Australia was the main one, but I don't see really any Australian scenes in here. Obviously, with the special effects and visual effects that we have these days, I'm not surprised if there was. But I'm just saying that they made it look a lot like Japan and, well, New Zealand, but that wasn't intended. That's only because I knew it in my background. I was like, oh, mountains, okay. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Now, first off, second off, I already said that. Second off, I want to say the plot was fantastic. One of the better plots for superhero movies this year, and I think that has something to do with, I counted at least 3 major plot twists, and that was one of the gripes I had with Man of Steel. One of the major things was, it was very predictable. A lot of the scenes that I came across in that movie, I just predicted it. I knew exactly what was happening. There was only one scene in this entire movie where I semi-guessed it. Now, this is a minor spoiler, very minor, but towards the end, there's the Silver Samurai, which you've probably seen in a couple of the trailers towards the end or even the middle of it. who at that time I had a feeling that it was this character who was in the mech or the machine, Silver Samurai, but I didn't know how. I thought, because he was originally dead, I thought that he would have been reincarnated in this machine perhaps, but I didn't know how, and it wasn't. It was actually alive in the machine. So that was one of the things that I semi-guessed. I did guess it was him, but I didn't know how. So apart from that, there was 3 other major plot twists which I wasn't expecting whatsoever, which was great. Top knocks for you, my friend. Well done. That was really well done on the plot. I understand that it was very loosely based on the comics, but that doesn't mean a thing to me. I'm not really into comics. I was more brought up in the generation of movies and video games, so I'm not really into whole comics anyway. And a complaint I have for the movie was that during a couple of the set pieces and characters, there was a few unexplained and unanswered questions. You've probably seen heaps amount of trailers and scenes from this. I'll put it up in here if you haven't anyway. It's like a 5-minute clip. No, not 5 minute, like a 3-minute. Basically, what it is his father, the girl's father or the grandfather's son, coming back from the grave after being stung by the Viper or Madam Hydra. He comes back and he's like infected or something. He didn't really explain why, because during the entire set piece it talked about how she can steal other people's abilities, like Logan's, but it didn't explain that she could take over people, which if she can, then why wasn't that one of her main things, and why didn't she do that to Logan? So I'm a little bit confused as to why that actually happened and why they didn't explain that. Another one was when the father hints at a possible secret that the daughter has been hiding, which at that time I was like, oh god, this is going to lead to something. But it didn't really go forward and progress with it. It was more just a secret. They were building, and they dropped. So they could have really emphasized that it wasn't really a secret a little bit better, or maybe they could have progressed with that secret and maybe adapted with it and evolved upon it, but they didn't really choose to do anything with it, which is a shame. The Viper character. How can I say about her? I'll be completely honest, the Viper character I didn't really like. I think that she felt a little bit out of place. She didn't really make much sense to me. I didn't really like how they portrayed her. She really had no connection with the Hydra, like the Hydra side of things, and I think they tried to do that was because Hydra, if you're unaware, is sort of the arch villain of S.H.I.E.L.D., which it's Fox, and they don't own the rights to Avengers. Marvel does, obviously, because they sold off X-Men and Fantastic Four to Fox. But I think they didn't want to really touch upon the Hydra aspect of her and more make her Viper than Madam Hydra due to that, because they didn't want to stretch into the Avengers. They wanted to stick with the X-Men, which again, that's a fault with the character, and they should have thought about that a little better when they're picking out the characters that they wanted to use for that particular movie. But other than that, the Viper character, she was just bland. I really liked the grandfather. He wasn't necessarily a villain, or was he? But the other villains were great. I love the villains where you think they're evil, but they're not, but they have a sort of different way or method of thinking, and that's the type of villains I like. A great example of that is actually the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man, or the Spider-Man movies in general, where he's not really a villain, he's just a different way of thinking, and that's probably my favorite types of villains. Now let's talk about something that they did right in the movie. The action scenes were really well choreographed and just well presented, and another thing that I didn't like about the Man of Steel movies that they did right here, they had a good balance of plot and action scenes, and the action scenes didn't feel unnecessary. Yes, in Man of Steel there were quite a few of them. And when they came along, I felt that they were just unnecessary, and they were there to more make action and sort of get a lot of the action in it. And in this movie, I felt all the action scenes were there for a reason. They made sense. There was a good balance of story, and I think they thought about this really well. They didn't want to have too much story and too much action, and they made sure that the action was timed in well with it, and it made sense, which is really well done. I thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you, my son. Alright, next page. We have the Jean Grey scenes flashbacks felt overused and unnecessary. That is correct. There was about, I think I counted 3 or 4 of the Jean Grey flashbacks, which I'll be honest, the first two I was like, okay, we're getting a bit of backstory for Logan, how he's feeling towards this character that he's previously lost, that he was forced to kill in the third X-Men movie. So that's alright, I'm liking 2. 3, getting a little bit overused, maybe just a tiny bit. Can you sort of stop? Can that be the end of it? No. 4th one, alright, I'm fucking sick of this, fuck off. Like, there was just way too much of the Jean Grey scenes. Felt overused to me. I can understand the premise that they're going for, to get a flashbacks for Jean Grey, but just stop. Just think of another way of portraying how this character is feeling. Or we don't even need it in the entirety. We have enough backstory for the character in those 3 Jean Grey scenes, 2 alone even. So I don't understand why they needed to emphasize Jean Grey as much as they did. The very end negative thing I have to say about the movie was the ending scene. I have to agree with IGN on something. Yes, I actually agree with IGN on a statement that they made. The ending feels rather, how do I put it? Not cartoony-ish, but that's how they put it, but it doesn't feel cartoony-ish to me. It feels more sci-fi-ish than the rest of the film. The rest of the film felt like it was not necessarily real, but more playing to the heartstrings of a realism character, and how, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt not as sci-fi, or not as out of place from the rest of the movie. Which I think if they had a little bit of a ending that actually played along with the rest of the film, it would have been better. But the ending to me just felt out of place and unneeded. They should have, I don't know how to really explain this. I was thinking about it in my head, but best I can explain it is that it just felt out of place to me. It just felt way too sci-fi-ish. There was too much emphasis on that last part of action. I just didn't like it, to be completely honest, the very ending of it. But the rest of the movie was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. The characters were really well developed. Hugh Jackman did a fantastic job on this character. This is, a lot of people think the exact same thing. Apart from the height, I think Hugh Jackman is a great Wolverine. He has a scruffiness, he has a look of it, he has a feel of it. It's just his height, which to me that wasn't a big problem. I mean, it's fucking height. Who cares? You can't help that. Unless he fucking chops off his legs and shrinks in size, and he can't help it. Why get up him for something he can't do? He can change the way he reacts and interprets this character, but he can't necessarily change a physical feature that he has. That's just plain stupid. So I don't know. I think he does a really a really good impression of Wolverine. I think he's one of the better. There is one character that I think might do a better job, and that was that guy from the Watchmen movie. I forget his name. He has a smiley face badge. He dies at the very end. But that's the only character I think would maybe do a little bit better of a job, or even on par of a job with Hugh Jackman. So acting was great. Cinematography was great. The action scenes were, again, really well rehearsed and choreographed. I think the movie was fantastic. The couple of gripes I have, the Jean Grey, the ending, the Viper, they're just very minor complaints, very minor. So overall, I think the movie was great. It was great. I don't think this was another thing I was thinking. Is it better than Iron Man 3? Does it top it? Yes. Yes, it does. It tops Iron Man 3, which, if I remember correctly, I gave Iron Man 3 a 8, I believe. Maybe. And I was thinking long and hard about what I want to review this, because I understand I gave World War Z, I believe, a 8.75, which I think is on par with World War Z. Yes, I'm giving Wolverine an 8.75 as well. I think this movie is on par with World War Z. I don't think it's necessarily better than World War Z. Even though they both had different goals for what they were aiming with this movie, I still think that they deserve the same review score, because they were as good as each other. This one was a little bit more of a sci-fi-ish movie, while World War Z was a little bit more of the, not horror, but more of the action. While this one was as well. They're both terrific movies. They both almost hit perfectly what they're aiming for, and I think this is really well done. I'll quickly run through my review scores. 10 is best movie ever made. 9 is fantastic, one of the best movies this year. 8 is a great movie. I think anyone who watched, the majority of people who watch this will enjoy it. 7 is, again, most people will enjoy it. It's a pretty good movie. 6 is, some people may enjoy it. Maybe about 60% of people will enjoy it. 50 is half and half. Some people hate it, some people like it. 4 is mostly people hate it. It's just under an average movie. 3 is pretty terrible if you can avoid the movie, but if you're a fan of like maybe the games or something, then you might get some liking out of the movie. 2 is pretty horrendous. Don't even bother watching the movie. Even if you're a fan of it, you won't like it. And 1 is the worst movie ever made. So out of all that, I think 8.75 is a good score to give it. It's in the middle between what I think. If I give World War Z an 8.5, I would probably give Wolverine 8.5, but I think this movie deserves an 8.75. So, thank you very much for watching the Wolverine review. Oh. If you enjoyed what I did with actually the intro, it's different from the rest of them, please let me know in the comments, and I will be sure to maybe incorporate more of those types of intros into the videos. And I will see you next time for more stuff. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.